The Last Duel is directed by Ridley Scott and stars Matt Damon, Adam Driver, Jodie Comer, and Ben Affleck. And in this story, it is set in the 1300s in France that deals with Matt Damon's character, who is married to this woman that's played by Jodie Comer. And if you've seen from the trailers, not going to go into too much detail, there's an event that happens to where pretty much Jodie Comer's character is accusing Adam Driver of something that happens in the film, and essentially it creates, it's from the trailer, it basically all builds up to a duel that takes place between Matt Damon and Adam Driver. Now here's a little backstory. Now, I was actually interested with this movie. I didn't really know much about it until a couple months ago when I first saw the trailer for it. It was a film that was based on a book that I also heard that I think it was a nonfiction book that tells the story of it was a true event that took place in the 1300s in France, and essentially I can't really go into the event, but it basically sparked a whole way of things that happened in those time periods that are kind of more relevant today if you look at it. It's the way it plays it out, and so. In this story, from the trailers, it got me really interested because I've come to really enjoy Ridley Scott making these epic, historical type movies like Gladiator, and I have yet to see Kingdom of Heaven, but I do want to check that out someday. And so him going back to his roots, doing stuff like Gladiator again, I thought was pretty cool. It got me really interested with that from the trailers, and this is also the first film that I also heard was. Written by Ben Affleck and Matt Damon for their first time since Good Will Hunting. So that made me actually really curious, how they were going to handle that kind of material with this. And so after finally seeing the film, I can say this was definitely one of the most not only intense films I've seen of the year, but also one of the most like one of the best films I've seen all year so far. To get my pros out of the way, the performances in this were all great. I really enjoyed Matt Damon and Adam Driver's performances. I thought they really, had a lot of great, scenes together where it deals with a great themes of friendship that go on with them, and you really see a lot of both sides that take place of it. But the one that sticks out for me the most is Jodie, I believe I'm pronouncing it right, Comer. I've seen her last in that movie Free Guy, and I thought she was great in that film. But this was probably her best performance I've seen so far, and she really, if she gets nominated for an Oscar, I wouldn't be surprised because she really did fantastic. And this kind of segues into my other pros, where you see also her perspective on things that happen, where she's accusing one of the men, she's accusing Adam Driver's character of something that happens, and what really invests me the most with the film is the way that you get a 3-act structure with this, where each chapter is basically a point of view perspective of each of the main characters. And I thought that's actually pretty great filmmaking, where I don't really think you've seen that too much. The only time I've really seen that happen, which it kind of reminds me in a certain way, is and I know this is a weird comparison, and it's funny because he also played him in a movie. There was an episode I watched of Batman the Animated Series called PLV, where it actually told 3 different stories in that, and you had each of the characters in that were retelling the events of what happened. And so it was kind of like that, only if you had it to where instead of them telling it verbally, it just comes up on chapters on screen, and then you pretty much see the same scenes that play out. Like for example, in the first act, you see how the first act plays out, and in the second act, it shifts to another character's perspective, and you see their side of it, but it still plays out the same scenes. And then what's really fascinating with this structure is the fact that you're able to basically, it tricks you into thinking of that what one person is doing or saying is different than what the other person is doing. And so it basically kind of does this whole theme of lie versus truth angle that I thought was pretty cool, and the way it played out that, because one moment you're really seeing the side of how one character is doing everything for their own right, and then the other person is doing it, and you see the other person's perspective, and they see that said person a different way altogether. And I thought that was pretty clever filmmaking from Ridley Scott's part on that. And one of my other biggest pros I gotta say too is this movie gets really fucking brutal in a lot of scenes. Like, now they don't go to the extreme of making it very epic, having epic battle scenes like you see in like a Gladiator in that regard, because the action is there, but it's kind of more like you might see in like maybe a scene here and there with it. But when it shows on screen, it does show some pretty bloody parts that I was surprised like they you don't really see too often anymore. And I was like on the edge, especially when it gets to its climax. That I mean, not going into knowing what the whole story, what the true story was about, I was like really very on the edge of my seat of wondering what was going to play out with it, because it was very unpredictable. And so, like, this movie really holds it back, and I really enjoy a lot of the production design of the way it takes place in. I can't tell if it's either medieval times. I think it's medieval times, maybe. Or something like that. I believe it's in the medieval times or another period that takes place in 1300s France, and a lot of the locations and a lot of the costumes and the armor and everything, it all really fits really well in that regard. And one of my other biggest going back to performances that stands out that I really enjoy the most, that was actually funny, was actually Ben Affleck in this movie. I thought he was having a hell of a good time in this movie. He's like a higher level that both Matt Damon and Adam Driver's characters are having to, basically serve under. And I just thought his character was really funny in a lot of scenes, and he just really had like a great time, like really making a lot of it work. And there's some parts in the film where some of the accents can really be thrown off at points, but I think it didn't really distract me too much, because I mean, I kind of really see it the same way I see like with Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, in that regard, with how like the accents are not really convincingly, but it doesn't really take away from the actual vibe, because I still really enjoy the performances in this. But to give my other pros, I gotta enjoy also the score was great. It has that very, it kind of has that very like music that, I don't know if I'm trying to remember, because it kind of sounded a little bit like Braveheart in some scenes. And, coming from that kind of like epic kind of music level in certain parts with the score. And so that was great. But I was so invested in the story, the way it played out, that I couldn't really, I was really interested in where it was going and all that. And it has probably one of the most scenes that, I don't want to get much really in detail, but let's just say it gave me flashbacks how I felt when I was watching Last House on the Left in both the remake and the original. Like, I was very like, it was like very heart wrenching to watch when I was watching it, and it felt so raw and real when it happened. But again, it's one of those movies that it knows what it's doing, and it's a shame that movies like this don't really get much attention as far as these epic movies like this and that come out in theaters anymore, because I think that a lot of people would really enjoy. I think it really does deserve a chance to be seen on the big screen, especially its scope of it, the way it's shot and everything. So with that being said, I gotta say that this is hands down one of the best films I've seen all year. And with that, I'm going to give the film a phenomenal grade on the Film Freaks meter. So, for those of you who have also seen The Last Duel, let me know in the and also read the book that it's based on, let me know in the comments below what you thought about it. And thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you in my next review. I'll see you later.